Madam President, over the last several weeks, I've spent a lot of time traveling across my home state of Washington, hearing from workers and families about the challenges that they face in today's economy. And while there's no question the economy has made a lot of progress, I spoke with far too many people who are working as hard as they could and still feel like they are running in place. Despite their best efforts, they have not achieved the kind of economic security that allows them to do things like buy a home, or save for retirement, or start the new business that they've been thinking about. I think we can all agree that more Americans should have those kinds of opportunities. So I'm proud that this year, Senate Democrats have focused on legislation that would go a long ways towards giving our families and workers a fair shot. We have made the case for giving millions of workers in this country a raise, helping students get out from under the crushing burden of student loan debt, ensuring that in the 21st century, working women get equal pay, and so much more. And in the coming days, we're going to bring these issues to the forefront once again and make another push for our Republican colleagues to join us. Each one of these policies would do so much for our families and economic growth, and that is especially true because each would help women in today's workforce. I've come to the floor to focus on that last point in particular and talk about why each of these bills would make a real difference for women across the country. Madam President, you may remember that my Republican colleagues blocked these bills the last time the Democrats brought them to the floor. So today I'm going to urge my Republican colleagues to say something besides no when it comes to higher wages for workers, or college affordability, or pay equity. Because if they've got a reason for opposing legislation that would help women and families get ahead, I think the American people deserve to hear it. Madam President, the role of women in families and in our economy has shifted dramatically in the last several decades. Today, 60% of families rely on earnings from both parents, up from 37% in 1975. Women today make up nearly half of the workforce, and more than ever, women are likely to be the primary breadwinner in their families. Women are making a difference across the economy, in boardrooms and lecture halls and small businesses. But our nation's policies have not caught up with the times. In fact, today, they are holding women back. Across the country, women still earn 77 cents on the dollar on average compared to men. That difference adds up. In Seattle last year, women earned 73 cents on the dollar compared to their male counterparts, and that translated to a yearly gap for women of $16,346. Nationwide, over a typical women's lifetime, pay discrimination amounts to $464,320 in lost wages. The gender wage gap makes dealing with other financial burdens, like student loans, even more challenging. Madam President, as you know, this spring I invited a woman from Massachusetts named Anne Marie Duchamp to our Budget Committee hearing to help testify about her own personal experience about pay equity. Anne Marie told us that over the years, she missed out on more than $12,000 in wages compared to a male coworker who was doing the same job. She told us that she and her husband both have student loan debt, and those lost wages, $12,000, would have covered 10 months of payments. Anne Marie said that thinking about that setback was, quote, heartbreaking. Now, Anne Marie said she was ultimately able to go back and convince her employers to give her equal pay. But unfortunately today, most women are not able to do that. Many don't even know that they are earning unequal wages. That is a real loss, both for our families and for our economy as a whole. And that's why we need the Paycheck Fairness Act, to tackle pay discrimination head on and help ensure that in this 21st century, workers are compensated based on how they do their jobs, not on their gender. Now, another policy that really needs an update is our federal minimum wage. 2/3 of minimum wage workers today are women. Many of them are the sole breadwinners and the sole caregivers for their families. And I know that if you ask them how $7.25 an hour translates to a grocery trip for a family of 4, or shopping for school supplies, or just paying transportation to and from work, they'll give you a straight answer. It doesn't. Madam President, Democrats know it is time they got a raise. Republicans disagreed. They said no earlier this year to a raise for 15 million women. And I think the American people deserve to hear why. Now, women aren't the only ones affected by these challenges, because when working women aren't getting equal pay, when they haven't gotten a raise in years, when they are struggling to make ends meet, that means that their families are too. And our economy as a whole is weaker for it. Democrats here have put forward ideas throughout this year that would help level that playing field. And it has been, I must say, deeply disappointing that time after time, our Republican colleagues have simply said no. No to tackling pay discrimination through the Paycheck Fairness Act. No to giving millions of workers across the country, including 15 million women, a raise. No to legislation that would relieve some of the crushing burden of student loan debt. And the list goes on. Madam President, Republicans rejected so much as a debate on each of those bills just a few months ago. And that really is a shame, because we know these issues women and family really care about. They rightly expect us to be working together to come up with solutions. And if Republicans are just going to reject our ideas, I think their constituents deserve to hear what else they have to offer. You know, Madam President, when I was in my home state of Washington last month, I spoke with an entrepreneur named Leilani Finau. Now, Leilani has worked very hard to get her own business off the ground. She told me that for the last 12 years, she's only been able to pay the interest on her student loans. So more than a decade later, she still owes the same amount of principal. I also talked with a woman named Veronica Donoso. She's an administrative specialist. She's a single mom from my home state. Veronica told me about the financial burdens that she is dealing with, not only student loans, but childcare for her daughter. And she said, quote, "I try not to let my daughter see my struggles, but I feel terrible knowing that she is suffering too." I think women like Anne Marie and Leilani and Veronica and a lot of other women across the country deserve to hear more than just no from Republicans when it comes to legislation that could really make a difference for them and their families. In the next few days, Republicans will have an opportunity to take a different approach than they have so far this year, and I'm calling on the Senate Republican leader to take advantage of it. We should be able to debate these really important issues. Democrats have put solutions on the table: higher minimum wage, student debt relief, giving women more tools to fight pay discrimination, and more. And if Republicans have more to say than no, it's time for them to do the same. Thank you, Madam President. I yield the floor.